All right, so hi everyone. Today I'm here with a special guest, Droolbatz, and so today we're going to be doing a review of the Korean revenge horror film I Saw the Devil. And so I invited her, to do a review with me, and she was, we decided to do this film, and she was gracious enough to give us some time. Yeah, why don't you just talk a little bit about yourself and the stuff you do online.
Hey, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. Hi, everybody. My name is Droolbatz. I like horror movies, and I like to watch a lot of lower budget horror movies that sometimes don't have as many reviews. I like to review movies that I don't think have a ton of reviews on them most of the time, low budget TV movies and stuff. Um, but I also like high budget movies too, and I'm excited to watch those when I can find them. So
Yeah, your YouTube channel has a lot of reviews, and they're really good. And there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like you said, it's stuff that maybe people haven't seen a lot of, kind of obscure and some real deep cuts, as it were.
thanks, I try.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that we got a chance to talk about a film together. So, yeah, the film we're talking about, it's a Korean horror film. It's called I Saw the Devil. That's the American English title, at least. And trying to, it was kind of hard. We were talking before about what can we talk about to not give too much away. And so we'll kind of do a non-spoiler section, and we'll try and be a bit vague, and then in the spoiler section we'll talk a little bit more. But the premise of this film pretty much is there's a serial killer who he mostly kills women, right? You would say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so he kills women, and let's just say that the main character, this protagonist, his name is Kim, I believe. He's like a Secret Service agent. We don't really know a lot about his job that he does before the events that cause him to want revenge takes place. But so Kim and the killer guy, I forget what was his name. His name was Jang.
Like,
Yeah, Jang was the killer. So Kim and Jang come into conflict with one another, and from that, Kim basically is trying to find a way to get revenge on Jang for what he did to Kim.
exactly.
Yeah, and so I guess one thing we could talk about a little bit vaguely is the opening scene. We see this woman, and she's broken down on the road, and it's snowing, and then we see the killer basically try to help her, say, "Oh, hey, can I give you a hand or something?"
Yeah.
What'd you think of that scene? How did that play for you?
I mean, I thought it was a great scene. I think, I don't know if your parents have ever warned you, but my parents are always if you're alone and your car breaks down, you want to lower your seat back and hide if you
Mm-hmm.
can and stuff like that. And I think the thing I noticed most about this scene, I don't think it's a spoiler, is when the lady's sitting in her car, she's got the overhead light on in her car. And I think it's supposed to be so the tow truck she called can find her. But when I saw that, I was like, turn your light off, lady. um, it for me at least, it this opening scene, it taps into a fear that I've heard this kind of thing can happen. So it's oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
realistic.
Yeah, totally. And that's a really good point that you bring up, that you're kind of told to be aware of these situations.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's a certain generation of people where there's a lot of fear instilled to them just about random strangers in general.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It could be regardless of anything. You meet someone in a supermarket, let alone someone on the side of the road, and yeah, so it's definitely a kind of scary situation. The other thing too
Yeah,
is
for sure.
this guy, he's driving this yellow bus.
Yeah, it looks like a school van or
Hmm.
something.
And the title that comes up, it says student safety vehicle. So again, it's he's kind of unassuming at first.
Right.
So yeah, we're not really sure what to make of him, but yeah, like from the jump, we're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little creepy. So then he breaks into the woman's car, and he like beats her with a hammer or something.
I think it was a hammer. Yeah.
Yeah, beats her with a hammer, and at that point, I thought she was dead. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I was like, oh, well, that was it.
He went really hard at her, like, yeah.
And it was a little gory, right? Like there was some blood there for sure.
Yeah, it was a little bit more grisly than what I was expecting it would be, especially for like an opening scene.
Yeah, it's very kind of squeamish, right?
Yeah.
Like
sure.
we're gonna just show you how hard we're gonna go in this thing.
Yeah.
But then later we find out this woman's wasn't dead yet.
Yeah.
And so this killer, he has like a lair where he takes these people. And he straps her in, he's got her chained up to this post. And then he like he's basically gonna chop her up.
Yeah.
It's like really hardcore stuff. And so then she's begging for her life, and she says, "Oh, I'm pregnant. Don't kill me."
Yeah.
He said something else to her. I forget exactly what it was, but he kind of didn't, he didn't care basically.
Yeah.
And then he like he has this like massive I don't know if you call it like a cleaver, or it's almost like what they would use in the French Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a guillotine.
Yeah.
So he then guillotines her head off.
Yeah.
And then that was it for her. And the next scene is like these people just, so this kid finds a bag with her body parts. And then some other investigators find the rest of her body, and they see her decapitated head. And it's like the media's everywhere. It's a huge circus, and yeah. So yeah, that was a pretty strong opening. Like I don't know how
Definitely.
you felt about it.
Yeah, it definitely was a very strong opening, for sure. Yeah.
So how did this make you feel about the killer himself? Like, did this make you feel like, where would you rank this in terms of things you've seen that are maybe similar or different? Other serial killer related films.
Well, it's kind of hard for me because the first thing I noticed is, like when I think of like a typical like killer movie, they often try to conceal the identity until later in the film. So I thought the fact that we see this guy's face when he walks right up to the window initially is like, is he actually the killer, or is like the killer going to come in behind him? So I thought that was a really interesting choice compared to the types of serial killer movies I've seen before. My thought was like, are they trying to humanize him, or are they trying to dehumanize him by like showing the glee on his face as he's doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's kind of two options there.
Yeah, for sure. There definitely aren't many where we see the killer like up front. Like sometimes it's a mystery. Sometimes, if it's like the Silence of the Lambs related movies, we tend to know the person and we see how bad they are, like kind of up front. So this is kind of more in that vein, but it uses it more as a revenge thing. It's not about like finding the person. It's about this person did this, so I'm going to now get revenge on them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, Kim decides he's really broken up about it. We get this sort of montage sequence of him going to a funeral, and he's like at the gravesite, and he's crying, and he's really sad. And so he tells his boss, like, I'm gonna take 2 weeks off. That's all I need. And he gets a list of names from this. Was he like the police chief or something like that?
I think he has a connection with the police chief or something. Yeah.
Yeah. He's basically like a high-ranking, like police or law enforcement official, and this person gives him a list of names. It's like 4 names or whatever, and he's like, these are the people they suspect, and so Kim just he's on it.
Yes.
So, do you remember like what the first like scene of him going after someone was?
I think the scene was where he like bursts in on this guy who's gratifying himself to very violent pornography. So it's like you're hit with this like, oh man, this gross individual is like, I don't know if it was implied that he had made the porn or like what, but it was, he was like a bad dude, and so you see this side of him as and then Kim goes in and confronts him.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting. Yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah.
They kind of like, they're just showing the rage that he has. Like it's almost like he doesn't even like he almost knows that this person didn't do it, but he's like, and we the audience know that wasn't the person.
Yeah.
That he's following certain leads that are dead, but he's just he's motivated by this rage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like he's just beating people up, just almost as if to get it out of his system so that he can like find. He knows he's gonna find the right person eventually, but this is a part of. I guess it's almost like a part of his grieving process is like.
Yeah.
Exacting this revenge on people, regardless of if they were the one for sure or not. They're just, you were in the way, so.
Yeah.
So I like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and I feel like, it's not like he wasn't just going after random petty criminals. They were all like, really wanted bad guys. Yeah. So it's like, maybe, in his grief, he was like, well, if I take down at least one guy on the way to finding this other guy, the main bad guy he's after, it's like, at least I'll have done some good, even if I can't actually get to that guy, even though he is determined and he knows he will, but...
Yeah, exactly. And so, so he's basically going through his list. He has like 4 names, but he's, the first one, we can kind of tell he knows that wasn't him. And then the guy like kind of, I don't know, I don't know if he tried to turn into a new leaf or something, but he, it scared him straight, let's put it that way, his interaction.
Yeah.
And then there's like another really cool scene where there's like, he's following this guy on a motorcycle, and he sees the guy, he hits his motorcycle, and he just starts beating him up, and then he like takes the guy's helmet off, and he has like a picture, and he's like looking at the picture, he looks at the guy, and he just beats him up some more.
Yes.
But again, these aren't the people who did it. He's just getting revenge to get this catharsis, I guess,
Right. Yep.
So, and then he finally comes to the point where he realizes, I think it feels like he kind of knows it, like when he gets to the next person, that this is the guy.
Yeah.
And he has to do some sleuthing, actually, because people don't really know where he's at.
Exactly.
And there's this interesting meeting that he has with the killer's like family. It's like the dad, the mom, and the son. I forget exactly what the gist of that was, but pretty much they talk about like he hasn't been around or whatever. Like we haven't seen him, and he's the dad hates him.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny scene to see the dad just like, oh, he's no good and blah blah blah. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Dad was really mad, but for good reason. Like
Right.
The guy did not turn out great.
Yeah, I'd be mad too.
Yeah, because he was like kind of a deadbeat, is what it seemed like. He dumped the son on them, and then he was gone.
Yeah, and I felt really bad for his kid too, because it's like, obviously he's bad, but it's like his kid probably doesn't know that, and you just see the pain. So it's like, even when this guy isn't intentionally like, beating people up and chopping them up, it's like he's still hurting people.
Yeah.
Just the way he is.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just inflicts different levels of pain on different types of people. So yeah, let's transition now into like the spoiler section. So anyone who's watching, if you want to avoid spoilers, now is the time to kind of dip out or, come to our thoughts at the end. So, from the start, so Soo-jung was Kim's wife. And so the killer kills Kim's wife. And we see him, he chops her head off and all this other horrible stuff that he does to her. And so that's his motivation for revenge. He's like, so at the funeral or some point, he swears that he's going to avenge her, basically. Mm-hmm. And so his father-in-law is this high-ranking law enforcement official. And so that's why he's able to get all these files on, who these suspects are.
Right.
And then, Kim just goes, he's unleashed on these people.
Yes.
Yeah, this was really... So then later we see Jang, the killer, just go after some more people. Like, he's out at... There's this woman at a bus stop, and he's like, oh... He pulls up to her in the same yellow van. He's like, oh, well, the bus doesn't run after this time, so let me... come jump into the car and I'll take you somewhere. And what'd you think of that scene? If you remember that scene?
I do, and that was another thing that, like, everyone, parents, teachers, everyone always says, like, never get in a car with someone you don't know, even if there's no other option. So that was another scene where I was like, no.
Yeah.
And of course this time we know he's the killer, so it's like there's not that question at this point. Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting too, like the way that it came about. Like they're driving, right, and then he's like, "Oh, he's like grabbing for something in the back." He's so casual about it.
Yeah, I think, and you could see her getting nervous, like is he gonna run off the road while he's like grabbing? Mm-hmm. And then he pulls out this threatening item.
Yeah,
he's trying to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he just pulls it out casually. Like, there's driving, and then he stops, and he pulls it out, and he just, like, leaves it in the center console. And he's like, what? It's almost like he was like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's really,
exactly.
really messed up.
Yeah.
So we see him, doing more stuff. And then, as Kim is getting closer to finding him, we see him pick up, like, a bus full of kids. And they're all, like, girls.
Yeah.
And we're just like, okay, this is more murder. But then Kim finds out where Jang is at. He figures out, okay, he's at this place. So Kim goes there, and, like, Jang is, like, about to, like, rape this girl.
Yeah.
But then Kim shows up, and then they confront each other. So Kim stops him from killing this girl. We don't know if the other people are, I guess we'd have to assume they're dead already or something.
Yeah.
But he stops this one girl from getting killed. But instead of, like, killing him or torturing him or taking him somewhere, he puts a tracking device in him. He makes him swallow a tracking device, and then he lets him go. So what were your thoughts on that?
I mean, I definitely thought it was weird, and I feel like, I think it's kind of like you were mentioning earlier, how when he found these people, he's like, I know you're not the one, and he just kind of went crazy on them anyway. Mm-hmm. It's like, I feel like if he had found the killer the first time, he probably would have gone so crazy on him. But this time he's like, I have gone through so many people to get to you. I'm not gonna unleash my full anger on you yet.
Yeah. Because
I've gone through all this emotional and otherwise effort,
Mm-hmm.
That was my take on that anyway. But
yeah, for sure, it was really interesting because he like, you could tell he was kind of had some kind of plan. Mm-hmm. It didn't, because at first I was a little confused because I wasn't sure. It's almost like his motivation wasn't to prevent him from doing more bad stuff.
Right.
It was almost to find some way to deprive him of the things that make him, feel pleasure. I don't know, whatever would be killing people or whatever. While also creating some type of, idea about how, okay, what can I learn about this guy so that I can know what's going to make him feel as much pain as I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, you could tell he was planning to play the long game with this guy. Because, you know, with the other people, it's like, you know, he knew they probably weren't the perpetrator and he just beat them up and left. But it was like, with this guy, he was like, I have you right in front of me and I went through all these people to get to you. Like, it's not going to be over just like that.
Yeah, totally. So he catches him, he puts the tracking device in him, and then he lets him go. He does save the girl, and probably, but he lets him go. And then the next day, he's like trying to get somewhere. I believe he was probably trying to meet with his friend that we'll talk about later. So then he gets picked up in a taxi, and these people in the taxi are kind of like, it's almost like this weird meeting of a bunch of thieves or a bunch of, you know, killers.
Yeah.
And he has this. I think one of the guys said like, "Oh, you're really lucky that we picked you up," and then he's like, "No, I think you're really unlucky."
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to just stab them all to death.
Yep.
The two of them. That was a really interesting scene, the way that they shot that.
Yeah, this movie had really good choreography with how they did this stuff, especially in like the scenes in like, you know, the vehicles, because it's like you're in a small space. It's like, that was visually very impressive.
I was really impressed by that scene because it's a small space, but the camera's like spinning and turning.
Yeah.
And it almost, like, the way that it was shot and the way, you know, that they edited it almost felt like a dreamlike thing. It was really interesting. So I thought that, and it was pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
It was bloody. They did not hold back on that.
Yeah.
So then he crashes the car, and Jang gets picked up by the military. Like, the military shows up, and I don't know what was implied with that, if they dropped him off where he wanted to go, or if he killed them too. I'm guessing they dropped him off, right?
Yeah.
So they drop him off at this place, and it's his friend. So they drop him off at his friend's place, his friend. And his friend is a straight up cannibal. Like, you see him, he's got these dogs in a cage, and what was he, like, cooking the meat? Cooking or something?
Yeah.
And then, you know, he's just eating people that he's been killing. And so Kim is tracking them to this location. And so then at some point he's going to show up. And then there's this really interesting discussion between these two murderers, and the cannibal guy is like saying like, "Oh, you created a monster with this guy that you pissed off. Like, you killed the wrong person." Blah blah blah. I thought that was really interesting. Like, you know, the thought for a serial killer to think that they created something even worse than themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Because these are two like despicable people.
Yeah. Eating people, you know, it's like, I mean, I think most people, it's like, you know, cannibalism is considered like one of the most awful things, and it's like something even worse, you know, for a cannibal to be like, oh, that self-reflection right there, it's like pretty bad stuff.
I forget, when did the so you remember, like, at one point Jang gets taken to basically like some medical person. So there's this thing that happens, and then Kim kind of like drops him off at some place for him to get first, you know, because he'd been really messed up. And do you remember when that happened? I forget where it happened, if that was before he meets with the cannibal or if it was after.
It was before. I don't remember exactly when. I think it was close to when the taxi scene happened, because I remember in their first encounter, Kim messed up his hand, and so that was one of the things the doctor was commenting, like, who plays soccer with their hands?
Yeah. Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah, I like
it. And he's like, hey man, shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then that was another time when Kim, it's almost like he's sort of punishing him for every time that he has these outbursts. Because then, you know, Jang, like, he threatens to beat up the guy, and then he tries to rape this nurse, but then Kim shows up and beats him up again.
Yeah.
He beats him up again, and then he like there's this really gruesome scene where he like cuts his Achilles.
Yeah.
Really gruesome. But then he tells the nurse, "Oh, you got to fix him up."
If I was her, I'd be like, "No way."
Yeah, right. I'd be like, "I'm out. I'm out of it. I don't know what's going on between y'all."
Yeah.
But I'm out of here. But yeah, it seems like he's stringing him along, but it's like he's intervening whenever there's this moment when Kim is like, when Jang is doing one of these outbursts where he's trying to hurt women, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because when Jang is like, the stuff with the two people in the taxi, he lets them get killed. There's some other people that get killed, and he doesn't really do a lot to stop him. But when there are certain things that he does, he intervenes and he tries to like, punish him for it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Kim breaks in on the. So they're at this mansion, I think, the cannibal and Jang, and I don't know. There's a story there, right, in and of itself,
right,
that we're not privy to. And the cannibal, he opens up a refrigerator and there's like body parts, and then there's this woman who's alive and he's gonna chop her up. But then Kim, he comes in and he's able to intervene and stop that.
Yeah, thankfully.
And there's a big scene between basically the three of them, the cannibal, Kim, and Jang, where he has to like fight them both off, basically. As well as there's this other woman there too. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if she's like was she the cannibal's girlfriend or like I was just like, what?
I don't know either. It reminds me of like, have you ever seen that movie? Was it like The Collector or I think it's The Collected?
Yes, a long time ago.
There's a scene like that in the second one, The Collected, I think is what it's called.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Okay. Yeah, like basically they're...
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But I guess you could say there's like Stockholm Syndrome, maybe you could put it. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, oh, if I defend the crazy cannibal murderer, he won't murder me.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the thought process. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, Kim has to fight off all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, now the police have kind of been on to Kim, right? Mm-hmm. That there's, something's going on. Someone's beating up these people who are suspects in this case. And so they then go to this mansion and they find everything, right? They find the cannibal, they find the woman, they even find Jang, and they kind of tell the Kim to like, hey, you gotta cut this out.
Yeah.
But of course he's not ready to stop.
He's determined.
Yeah. So yeah, he's not done with Jang yet.
Yeah.
But at this point, things start to take a turn. So Jang now understands, what Kim is trying to do to him. Mm-hmm. And so now Jang conspires against Kim to sort of make him pay for like trying to get revenge on him.
Yeah.
And so then he figures out like, oh, there's some way he's tracking me. And this was a really gross scene. I don't know if you remember like how he got rid of the tracking.
Yeah.
That was really gross. Like the way he gets rid of the tracking device. That was gross.
Yeah.
And then there's this really kind of, it's good, but it's like kind of painful scene where he figures out, okay, the best way to get revenge on Kim is to go after the father-in-law. So he like goes to his house and like, it's the classic thing, like the person knocks at the door and don't answer the door.
Yeah.
Someone calls on the phone telling you don't answer the door.
Yeah.
But they're just this late.
Yep.
What I found so interesting too was like, so that happens, and then the father-in-law gets captured by the killer. But the killer doesn't actually kill him.
Right.
He just kind of wants to torture him, which I thought was interesting. But then the daughter shows up, and then it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. So yeah, what did you think about this whole turn in the movie where now the killer is trying to get revenge on the guy who's getting revenge on him?
I mean, I guess it shows the killer has like fighting spirit or whatever, but I don't know. It was just like, what you think, like, let's say he actually, it's like you succeed and you kill Kim's whole entire family. Like, you think he's suddenly like gonna stop coming after you? It's like, I don't know. It kind of proved to me that the killer, he didn't really care about like that he was being pursued. He didn't really care about his own life. Like, that's kind of the point where I kind of realized it was like he doesn't care about his own life and survival the way most people and most anybody would.
Yeah, totally. He's kind of pretty nihilistic about himself, and because that's a really good point, because when Kim and him first meet, he's like, oh, are you a cop? Like, and I think he does he even say like, oh, you guys found me this quickly or something like that, I think. Yeah, so it's almost like he's like, oh, well, I'm gonna kill as many people as I can, but then at the end, whatever happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, he definitely has a sort of more nihilistic outlook, and that conflict is interesting because Kim is trying to like find the thing that can punish Jang the most, but because Jang just doesn't really care, it's not really working.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Jang's plan was to kill these people close to Kim, and then he was going to turn himself into police so that Kim couldn't get revenge. So Jang does these killings, and then he decides to try and give himself up to the police in the middle of like a highway. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you would think they would go to the police station, but
yeah,
it's literally like the middle of the road, and like cars are driving by. And then, so yeah, again, this whole time they've kind of been building up Kim as this character who can like, he's very effective at what he's trying to do. Like, he gets into all these fights and he's just like way faster, and like he just beats these guys up really easily.
Yeah.
He's never, even when things happen that he's not really totally prepared for, like at one point in the mansion, Jang pulls a gun on him, but he's able to get away from, Kim doesn't even have a gun. He's able to like outmaneuver him and still defeat him. So then in this scene, when it's in the middle of this crowded street, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen now? He does this crazy like some Fast and Furious kind of shit he does this thing, and then he's able to like capture Jang again before the police get to him. And then he takes him off somewhere to do some more torturing.
Yeah.
But the central conflict is like Kim can't find, he hasn't found that catharsis yet. He hasn't found a way to like make the pain of what happened not stick anymore. And he's still trying to break Jang, and it just isn't working, even when he takes him to wherever I don't know if that was that the place where Jang originally was torturing people?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so he takes him there, and he's trying to torture him, but it's just not working. I won't give away the ending, but let's say that he creates a Saw-esque kind of trap for Jang.
Yes.
And involves maybe the one thing that is kind of the worst thing in his life, which is his family. And he's put into this it's very Saw like kind of trap that could get him killed. And so that was the film. So yeah, what were your feelings about the film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were there things that really stuck with you?
It was definitely an interesting movie. And it was like I felt like the movie was it was approaching this story from like different ways. So I was kind of like, what are they going for
Mm.
here? So I definitely found it very interesting. Like, obviously you want the killer to die, but then it's like when you see him with the taxi guys and they're like, we're gonna kill you. It's like, are we supposed to root for him? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of interesting how they went
Mhm.
so much into his story. I feel almost like they went more into his story than into Kim's story.
I agree with that for sure. Because like with Kim, we know nothing about him really, other
Yeah,
than that his wife dies. We don't know
yeah,
why he's good at his job, why he took his job, what he did before.
yeah,
We just have that one scene where him and his wife are talking on the phone, and they have this sweet moment where he's kind of
yeah.
like singing to her or something
Hmm.
to make her feel, safe. And then of course she gets killed, and then he just feels terrible.
Right.
But yeah, besides that, we don't know anything about him.
Yeah,
He's just a guy who's determined to get revenge.
yeah,
But yeah, for the killer, like, we see his family. We definitely know a lot about him, like more things than we probably want to know.
yeah,
Especially all these interactions he has with women, like that. I feel like that tells us everything we need to know about him, basically.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
So, what do you think? Like this film, the theme of this film has to say about revenge, and like, if it can really, I don't know, if it can really satisfy people's need for justice.
I mean, I feel like it's definitely revenge hurts the person who wants it more than the person who it's getting
Mhm.
enacted upon. I mean, I think that definitely is the basic theme there, but it was just really, I don't know, it was just really interesting the way this Kim is so, so, so determined. Because I feel like most people swamped in that much grief wouldn't, like, even if they were determined, it's like they still wouldn't be able to accomplish that much in, like, isn't it like 2 or 3 days or something? It's like, wow.
It's like probably day one and day two was like those, random people, and then
Yeah.
the next was like in a couple days he meets with the killer's family, and then he finds the killer, and then he tracks him down to that place. Yeah, he's very efficient.
Yeah. And so it kind of made me, it's interesting because that's one of the questions I had is, not a question I had, but when I was like, how are they approaching this movie? It's like, is it going to be like a character study? Because, most people wouldn't react that way. Or is it like philosophical? Like, it was interesting because they had different perspectives on like a kind of a common baseline story in my,
Yeah, I think because I feel like at the end, at the very very end, once he's done all this stuff and he set the trap for the killer, I think that at that point he's finally found what he's been looking for. In terms of a way to feel that he's done what he needed to do for his wife, to feel like he fulfilled the promise.
yeah.
Before then, yeah, he's like struggling to try and find a way to do it, and I feel like that's because it's about him, because like a bunch of terrible things happen to other people,
Oh yeah.
and he doesn't really care. Like he kind of cares about the in-law stuff,
Right.
but
Right.
it's about him. It's about him feeling like he's gotten this this thing for his wife, this promise that he made, and once he's fulfilled that promise, then he feels like he's relieved. Because at the very end of the film, we see him like have actual relief.
Yeah.
It seems like he's like, okay, I did it, finally.
Yeah.
So within the least, like at the end, the character has moved on.
Yeah.
Before that point, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you think about, like, did you feel like the acting was good in this film, like especially the two main characters, the killer and Kim?
Definitely. Yeah, I think their acting, it was, they were both very memorable, and especially, well, it was just really interesting to me because Kim, it's like he's so stoic, even when he's, committing these insane physical acts of violence and all of that. Like he's so stoic, and then, the killer is so animated by contrast. And usually, I feel like in standard movies, it's like, the killer's like cool and like stoic, and then like the hero's like flailing around. So it was interesting for me to see that reversed.
Yeah, for sure. The killer was very like you said, very animated.
Hmm.
Just did all this weird stuff.
Yeah,
He's a character. He's the biggest
he
character
is.
in the film.
Yeah, and it is such a weird character. It is so unusual, but I do think that the acting, it was very good, and it was very convincing, even though it was like a very weird role to me, at least.
Yeah, for sure. I like that you brought up the stoicism of the Kim character, because that was like really stood out to me. And the way the actor
Me
played
too.
him, there's these moments where like he's being stoic but he's crying, and
Yeah,
and I thought that was really effective because it's like it showed, there's some strong inner turmoil in this character, but
yeah.
he keeps this straight face. But
Hmm.
he's really torn up by what happened to his wife. And there's a couple,
Yeah,
there's like, they were like talking or something, and he's talking to the killer, and he was crying, and then there was like this moment where he gets to the killer's lair and he finds his wife's ring, and he really gets kind of beat up
yeah,
about that. I thought it was really effective the way he played the character, for sure.
yeah,
But the two are definitely a big contrast, the killer and the protagonist.
yeah.
Okay, so why don't we talk about, like, you in your reviews you tend to talk about the premise, the production value, and how it compares to other films. So, what do you think about the premise for this film?
Um, I mean, I feel like the baseline of it's very standard. Someone does something bad to your family member, so you're gonna do everything you can to either go after them or stop them. And it's kind of, I think the details are what made it stand out, and kind of separated it. Because it's like you mentioned, it's like Kim wasn't really trying to stop the killer from hurting other people. It was just about him. And I think that's where it was unusual for me.
Yeah, for sure. It's I feel like the American kind of things that touch on this, it's more like there was a series like Death Wish or something like that, where
Okay.
yeah.
I feel like I've heard of that, but I have not seen it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so in that series, like, the guy's wife gets attacked by some just like hoodlum kind of people,
Okay.
and then he just goes crazy and wants to get revenge. He like buys a gun and he goes out on the street, vigilante kind of stuff.
Okay.
But in that, the character is very like he's trying to get revenge on. He's like leading up to finding out, who did this to the people I care about. How can I get revenge
Yeah.
on them? How can I stop them and stop them from doing things
Yeah.
like that in the future? This was like, I made a promise to my wife. And I want to figure out how I can torture this person who did this thing to my wife so that I can feel like some kind of resolution. Um,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, it is different. It's definitely a different take on it.
Hmm.
He's a vigilante who's not trying to get like justice in the sense of like what we're used to. He's just trying to like
Yeah.
he's just trying to get revenge, but in a
Yeah.
specific way that he's trying to do a specific type of thing to the antagonist, to this killer, and nothing else matters to him. It's like, how can I torture him in the way that he tortured me? But I don't really care about anything else happening to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of the production value of this film?
It was great. The thing that I really, we kind of touched on this already, but the choreography of like how especially these violent fight scenes were filmed was so impressive to me. And I really liked the color scheme of the movie too. I don't know if that's something you noticed, but it was a really beautiful movie despite being very, very gory and intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was, they definitely put a lot into the production value, especially like the locations and, like you said, like the way that they film these fight scenes between like Kim and Jang, or Kim and the cannibal, were really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like the way that they did that scene with that mansion was like, it was a really nice location, but when you see like what this guy's been doing, like the details of that got really creepy and effective.
Yeah.
Especially like the lair too. The lair was really well done.
The lair, yeah.
Because it just felt like really like, ooh, this feels kind of real.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, how would you say this film compares to like other films that are similar?
Like production value, or just like in general?
So yeah, like I'd say, how does it compare in the sense that, like, if you think about a revenge horror film,
Okay.
How does this? Do you think this? Where's I Saw the Devil? Where is it different? Where is it in some ways change what you expect a film like this to do, and where is it in some ways kind of do things that you do expect it to do?
Okay. That was kind of what made this movie interesting. Is it's like there were many typical and expected steps, and then it sidestepped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know for me, the opening scene where Kim's wife is killed, when I was watching it, I didn't really I hadn't watched a trailer or anything for this movie, so I only vaguely knew what I was getting into. I was like, oh, this is pretty violent, but I'm sure it's because they're trying to show how depraved this guy is, and then most of the rest of the violence is going to be like Kim coming after him. But it wasn't. It continued to be very, very, very grisly. In my opinion, it's a little bit more extremely gory than I've seen in the revenge type movies, but they kept it very. It's like, it was very gruesome for sure, but it was also like impressive, and I don't want to call it beautiful because, like, no, but also like the composition was really nice, even though it was like what you're seeing is awful. So in that way, how they approached this story, I really thought they were just gonna not get as into detail about his gory acts after we see the first thing, and then that didn't go how I expected, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you're saying, it's very artistic in the way that they depict these things that are happening, even though they're very, like you say, grisly and gruesome and kind of gory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was definitely, well, I kind of expected I was going to get something I wouldn't normally see, and definitely the thing that kind of got me was when he keeps when Kim keeps letting Jang go and do more bad things, but again, I felt like he always intervened and stopped him whenever it involved a woman.
Yeah.
And I felt like he did that because he wanted to deprive him of this pleasure that he got from, like, sexually torturing women. That was like his idea of how he could torture this person. So he didn't stop him when he got in the taxi and killed those two guys. He didn't. There was maybe a couple other things. Like, there was like a time where he beat up a guy in a bathroom. He couldn't really stop him there. But whenever it involved a woman, he would try to stop him because he felt like, oh, this is the thing that he gets sexual gratification from. This is the thing that makes him, get enjoyment out of it. If I can deprive that enjoyment and string him out and then torture him, and then basically, like, it seemed like he would physically punish him every time he tried to do something to a woman. And so that I found really interesting, because that was definitely different, because usually the revenge, it's like it's a person who's a vigilante, but they have our sense of justice, which is like, oh, someone does something bad, you must stop the bad person and, I don't know, kill them or send them to jail or something. But this was more like, this person's bad, they hurt me in a certain way, I want to exact the same type of revenge on them that they did to me.
Yeah.
So that was different, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So yeah, so what's I guess your overall thoughts about the film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What was your takeaway?
It was very unexpected for me. I won't lie, the scenes of the sexual violence, that I really didn't like those. But I thought the acting was really good, especially the main two actors. It was interesting. It's like, I don't know if I would ever watch it again just because it was so gory and stuff, but it was so interesting. I keep thinking about it, especially about the characters and like their motivations, How do you feel about it?
I thought it was good. There was some brutal stuff, especially like the stuff with the young girl the second time.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, this is going somewhere. I don't know if I want to go there.
Yeah.
It doesn't really hold back, and I mean, I remember there was another torture scene that I kind of had to look away.
Yeah.
Like, I forget who it was, but someone was getting tortured, and I was like, ooh. So it doesn't hold back, and yeah, this guy, this killer is like, he's very memorable though. Like, he's very memorable.
Yes.
Because he's so, I just think about like that scene in the car when he picks up that woman who's at the bus stop, and he's just casually like, oh, where did I leave this thing so I can kill her? And just the way that doing these things for this character is just a way of life, and it just really kind of sticks with you. It's like, yeah, of course I was gonna pick you up and bash you upside the head and then chop you up into little pieces. It's really it doesn't shy away from how kind of terrible these characters are, but at the same time, this Kim character, he's not the typical hero.
Right. And with Kim, for me, the fact that he keeps letting the killer go, and it's like, yeah, he does stop him before he actually does something bad to women, but it's like, those women are terrified, and it's like, his wife was terrified before she died, so it's like, to me, it's like, dude, why wouldn't you want to stop them from feeling that emotional pain, So it's like, in that sense, it's like, yeah, he's a good guy, but like, is he a good guy? And maybe that's what the cannibal was talking about, like the monster. But
yeah, because especially like every time he lets him go, he terrorizes someone else. Every single time, and Kim doesn't really care. Like, he lets him go once, and then he terrorizes this doctor and then this nurse. He lets him go again, and then he kills these two people in a taxi, and then he goes to this pharmacy and he just starts stealing drugs, and he beats up. We find this guy at this pharmacy later who's almost killed.
Yeah.
So this guy is like ruthless, but it's just, Kim doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a moral ambiguity about the film.
Yeah.
So
that did make it interesting, though.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't play things like to a T in like the traditional way. Although I feel like the revenge genre, you get a lot of crazy stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't seen, I don't know if you've seen I Spit on Your Grave or whatever that film was. I don't think I've seen that.
I haven't seen it. It's on my list to watch, though.
Yeah, I feel like you get some hardcore stuff. Like, that's where you get.
Yeah.
There was even a film called Revenge, a French film, I believe it was French, where this woman is like just hanging out with these people, and then some stuff happens. She has to get revenge on them for what they did to her. But yeah, you get a lot of sexual violence, a lot of like physical violence, a lot of gore and stuff, and just kind of ambiguous characters. So this is kind of in line with that,
Yeah.
So overall, I liked it. I thought the film was pretty good. I definitely felt like, the way that they didn't just do the normal vigilante thing. They present this character as someone a little bit different. Like he's not he's not someone to he's not like Batman or whatever, like a good guy.
Yeah.
Like he's out to do some violent stuff and he doesn't really care. So
yeah.
So I guess that's mostly our review. Do you have any like parting thoughts about the film or anything?
I mean, it was exciting to watch a Korean horror movie. I really haven't seen any Korean horror movies before, except I don't know if Train to Busan is actually like horror, but it's like everyone's seen that. So
well, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
I need to see it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
Oh no. So that's great. But yeah, I was just saying, like, I haven't seen, like, besides Train to Busan, I haven't really seen any horror movies from Korea. So I was like excited to kind of expand my palette in that way. And again, I was so impressed by how thoughtful and just how clever they were with like their filming, and I thought the way they played with like music and stuff in the background, it was subtle, but it really enhanced the movie. And so it's like everything from like the content to the themes to like the actual art and making of the movie, it's like I've been thinking about it. It's very memorable. So
yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Mm-hmm. It's a memorable film for sure. Just the killer alone, I feel like the killer and the and the protagonist dynamic is very memorable.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so yeah, that was our review of I Saw the Devil. So where can people find you, and like what kind of things do you have coming up?
So I have a YouTube channel. It's just called Droolbatz. The word drool and the word bat and then a Z at the end, because edgy, like it's 2007. I occasionally review horror movies. I'm trying to do it more frequently. Quarantine's had me absent a little bit, but I try to review horror movies there, and yeah, that's basically it. If you want to see pictures of my cats, I'm on Instagram.
Yeah,
but that's about it for me.
Yeah, cool stuff. Well, yeah, thank you for coming by. This was a really cool collaboration, and I really appreciate you doing this review with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, thanks a lot, everyone, and we'll see you guys again next time.